And burn!
Hey everybody. So tonight I am discussing, I believe, the 1985 movie Demons. I think it came out in 85 at least. And this is like one of the first real horror movies that I saw back when I was a little kid. And I've talked about this place in other videos. I got it at Wonder Video in Pickering. The guys that worked there, they were kings. They let me and my friends, once they got to know us, they let us rent like whatever we wanted, except for porn. The only thing they wouldn't allow us to rent was porn, which when I was like 10 and 11 years old, I didn't really care about porn anyways. And when it came to like special interest, like that's where we found the Faces of Death, later on the Traces of Death movies. That's where we found the Mondo Canes, the Shocking Asias that I never really got into. My friends watched the Shocking Asias. I think there's a few of them. My friends really got into those. And then I remember seeing the cover with the main demon from this, the one that sort of gets all the press, the one that comes right out of the body, like it was like a xenomorph coming from inside the stomach of somebody. And the cover was so scary, it's like, fuck, what is this? And it looked like real, I guess. And the guys at the store were like, oh, fuck, you haven't seen Demons? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm like 11 or whatever. And of course, all the guys at the store were in their like late teens, early 20s. And they were like, you have to see Demons. It's kind of like a rite of passage. Like, it's like the Texas Chainsaw. Like, the gore in this movie is like second to none. So I said, sure, fucking right. And me and my buddy Billy, specifically, we rented this. And I remember I had a hard time getting the movie out of the case because you had to squeeze the sides to get the cassette out. The fucking thing just would not come out. And then when we tossed it in, and it starts with these two chicks. They're going to the Metropole, the theater, to see some movie. We don't know what the movie is. They're handed a free invite by this dude with really elaborate looking makeup. But then later on, it's suggested that maybe it isn't makeup. He's got like the demon mask worked into his face. And nobody really understands that guy's story. I never understood that guy's story. So he hands them the passes to get into the movies. They say, fuck it, we're going to blow off class. They go down there, they meet these two hunky dudes. They all kind of hook up, and they're seeing the movie. And one of the other patrons, this chick that came in with I guess like that's her pimp, like the big black dude. And so him and these two chicks show up. And one of the chicks grabs the demon mask off the little very 1980s looking motorbike samurai sword samurai getup that they have in the lobby of the Metropole for some reason. And she puts it on, it cuts her face. Boom, the movie begins. She's now infected with the demon virus, I guess. Okay, look, Italian horror isn't going to be for everybody because so much of it either, it's just so nonsensical most of the time that some people will be completely turned off by Italian horror. Now, I love Italian horror. It's like they're letting all the actors speak their own languages, and it's this sort of like Tower of Babel thing they've got going. And I don't know. I never really understood that because you can clearly tell that when the actors are talking that they're not speaking English and they're not speaking even the same language a lot of the times. So anyways, yeah, Italian horror movies are kind of completely over the top. The gore is ridiculous. The gore is amazing. But then the more traditional elements of a movie where like story and things being coherent and that, they don't always apply. So I don't know how this gets started in the Metropole with this samurai motocross thing with the demon mask on it. Well, anyways, the chick cuts herself and she goes off to the bathroom because it starts to hurt, grows into this massive pimple thing. It explodes, gets gore everywhere. She transforms into a demon, goes out, attacks her friend, and the carnage begins. And it's at this point, or possibly maybe before this point, that the people in the Metropole have been locked in. The entrances have all been bricked off, which again, there's another element of this movie that doesn't necessarily make the most sense, but they're bricked in. They can't get out. And the carnage ensues, and the carnage is great. Like the transformation of the other chick, the chick who cut her face, her friend, who she mauls pretty good. She transforms like in the middle of the theater, like right up at the front where the screen is. And even though it is dated, the nice thing is, of course, because it's from the mid 80s, this is all practical. Like the special features on well, at least the special features on the version of Demons I have, they get into it and they show like how they had like, it was like RC in order to push, like they had an RC control in order to push the teeth out and everything. And so on one hand, it looks kind of mechanical and kind of dated, but on the flip side of that coin, considering the fact that it was all practical, it more than makes up for any sort of technical shortcomings of the era, because practical effects just always look better, especially weighed against the CGI garbage of today. You give the movie a couple years and modern movies look like shit now. But anyways, yeah, what else did I want to say about this? It's hard to read my notes because everything's really red. Um, the soundtrack was amazing. Both the score from Claudio Simonetti, which they released for the first time or re-released for the first time a million years ago. I mean, not a million years ago, but no, probably more than that, probably like 7 or 8 years ago now, where they were limited to 666 copies of it. And I got one of them. I think I might have done a video about it already. I can't remember. Claudio Simonetti's score was so perfect. It's so mid 80s, and it's got like the demons, in it, which totally reminds me of the part in Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater, where he's remixed David Dealer, the school's crisis counselor, and making fun of him for setting up that "Believe It or Not, I Care" bullshit. And it's like the remix is like, I'm David Dealer, Dealer. So whenever I hear demons, I automatically think of David Dealer. Probably the only person in the world that feels that way. But nevertheless, when I hear one, I think of the other. And the score is amazing. The opening track is wicked, and it's so memorable, and it's so easy to fall in love with. But then on the actual soundtrack itself, like Accept is on there, Billy Idol's on there. Who else is on there? I wrote it down, see if I can read it. Billy Idol's on there, Motley Crue's on there, Saxon is on there. So it's like so metal, which of course it was a big deal in the mid 1980s. Metal was huge. And that's amazing. And then the part at the end where the good-looking dude and the good-looking chick are on the motorbike that was in the lobby, knocked the samurai dude off, and they grabbed the samurai sword because, of course, it's a real samurai sword. It's like an actual katana, and it's sharp as hell. And so the demons are chasing them around, and they are cutting their heads off and shit, shooting around the theater while Accept's Fast as a Shark is playing. And I love that song. And when you're like 10 years old and you're seeing this for the first time, you're seeing some guy on a motorbike with a chick on the back with a fucking katana chopping off demon heads, listening to Accept. This is just about the coolest movie you could ever possibly hope to see when you're in grade 4 or grade 5. I mean, actually, in a lot of ways, regardless of your age, it's just one of the coolest movies you could ever hope to see. The downside to this movie is the fact that it is like bogged down, kind of. It does get it's an Italian horror, so they sort of lose their way. It does run a little long at times. And then the end. Somehow the demons, in a span of 4 or 5 hours while the people were trapped in the metropole, one of the demons manages to escape. And it looks like, I'm getting the impression that they've infected the whole world. Or at least wherever they are in Italy or wherever. The entire city is overrun with demons. The good-looking couple make it out because a helicopter crashes into the theater, and then the dude with the demon mask worked into his face, he attempts to wipe them out. And he doesn't seem to be too affected by the demons, and he's clearly an unaffected human who's got that shit like worked into his face, so he's probably not human, but he looks very human. And then he's on top of the roof somehow, waiting for them to show up so that he can try to like push their face through some rebar. I just don't know what that guy's deal is. I've always wondered what that guy's deal was. But yeah, so then they escape, and then you find out somehow the chick got bit or scratched or something because she turns into a demon. The guy whose car they're escaping in blows her away, and then the movie ends. And I'm like, how did that happen? That doesn't make any sense. And that, of course, again, Italian horror. It doesn't make sense. It's not always going to make sense and can't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense, I don't think. Because a lot of Italian horror movies that I love, whether it's like City of the Living Dead, or of course it's Suspiria, or it's Inferno for that matter, or if it's Demons, or Demons 2, or anything from Lamberto Bava. Like, what was that other one? Was that Lamberto Bava? Was it Manhattan Baby, his too? I can't remember. Tombs Are for the Dead. That movie made absolutely no sense, but it was still fun. Manhattan Baby is technically kind of stupid, but fun at times. But goddamn, Italian horror just goes completely off the rails, like the end of City of the Living Dead with the never-ending nightmare. I'm like, what the fuck? Why did it have to be animated? But look, that's where I'm going to leave it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little over 9.5 minutes while I discussed, I believe, the 1985 film Demons. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, never forget that the world is a way better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here because the red is starting to get on my nerves. Yeah. Have a good night.